Halo Infinite is the 8th mainline Halo game and has its roots in James Cameron's Aliens and Quake. The first Halo game, Halo Combat Evolved the first-person shooter genre with a 2-weapon carry limit and regenerating health. But instead of, like most games, instead of just getting a red screen, you also get a satisfying beep 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 when regenerating health. It has been 20 years since the first Halo game came out. Many games, side games, and novels have been made since then. Halo Combat Evolved 2 and 3 were seen as a perfect gaming trilogy, but Halo 3 ODSTs, Bungie's next game, had a more turbulent development. Halo 2 and 3 were put together with duct tape and hope of making me think that the people at Bungie that made the game were actually Warhammer 40k orcs. Halo 3 ODST had a very short campaign and not enough content to be considered a full release, and was originally supposed to be sold for $45. But it was released with a $60 price tag, making it a very divisive entry in the Halo series. Halo Reach was a return to form for the Halo series, taking place before Combat Evolved canonically. It's often said to be the best Halo game, and it was made with a more casual player base in mind, making it more accessible. Halo 4 and 5 were made by a new studio, 343 Industries. They were made by 343 because the original creators of Halo, Bungie's contract with Microsoft and Xbox dried up. Both of their games so far were departures from Halo's normal formula, being much more like Call of Duty or Battlefield. Both were treated with very lukewarm responses, with Halo 5 introducing a new movement system and Halo 4 making it so you could sprint whenever you wanted. It seems like the only thing that could truly kill Halo was its steady decline into mediocrity, and Halo's legacy needed its next main game to be good. But the gaming landscape changed a lot since Halo's conception in the early 2000s. Games now are more treated as a live service, with content being trickled in during the game's release. There were also battle passes, which are like subscription services which allow you to get more cosmetic content in the game. These battle passes usually didn't make it so you have any advantage towards somebody who didn't have a battle pass, however. Halo Infinite prided itself on being a return to form for Halo, bringing back the original art style with some influence from 4 and 5. Call of Duty was now the first-person shooter giant, with their Battle Royale game mode Warzone being available to anybody who could download it. People flocked to the game, but with Call of Duty Vanguard's release, the new Call of Duty was seen as an overall failure. Battlefield 2042, which was also a competitor to Halo, had a very buggy launch and beta, and with Halo Infinite's multiplayer being released early, Battlefield's pre-orders dropped. Halo was once again on the cusp of being a gaming giant. Could it live up to the hype and prove itself? Halo Infinite's story takes place after Halo 5's story, and after a 6-month period after humanity lost their flagship supercarrier, the UNSC Infinity. Most of Halo's story revolves around ancient alien worlds called Halo Rings. Giant hula hoops in space that have a very impressive skyline that were created as weapons to wipe out all life in the universe to stop a zombie-like fungus. In most Halo games, you play as John 117, Master Chief, a genetically modified super soldier woken up from cryo-sleep to help humanity. After killing some aliens from a group called the Covenant, the ship he is on crash lands onto the Halo ring. But he does have his personal AI buddy, Cortana, a bluish-purplish hologram woman to help him out. They find out the secrets of Halo, now knowing that it was made to wipe out all life in the universe, and the threat of the Flood, which are the fungus-like zombies I was talking about. Together, Master Chief and Cortana blow up the frigate they crash-landed on Halo with, destroy the Halo ring, getting rid of the Flood infestation and stopping the Covenant for the time being. Master Chief then proceeds to save humanity about 3 other times, befriending a group of aliens who were separatists from the Covenant because of their change in leadership, killing the leadership of the Covenant, destroying most of the Flood and the Forge of the Halo Rings. But with no other place to go after that, Master Chief enters back into cryostasis. After being in deep space for 4 years, Cortana wakes Master Chief up while she is going rampant. Rampancy is where an AI overthinks itself to death and starts fragmenting itself. Chief promises Cortana that he'll save her, but who has to fight an ancient being from the species who made the Halo ring named the Didact who wants to kill all humans? Master Chief saves humanity, but in the end cannot save Cortana. He blames himself and considers himself a failure for that. He goes out by himself and with his old team to go find fragments of Cortana, hoping that she is still alive. He's also being hunted by another team of Spartans because Halo 5's story is dumb and shouldn't be talked about anymore. All that needs to be known is that some Halo rings are still out there and Cortana became the new villain, believing that everybody should be at peace or die under her rule. At the start of Halo Infinite, Master Chief is beaming down aliens trying to get his KD ratio up against a new faction of Covenant defectors named the Banished, who are very edgy and are about self-reliance and power. Master Chief is absolutely demolished by the leader of the Banished, Atriox, and thrown into deep space. Later then, a pilot of a Pelican who has been locked up in the Pelican for 6 months floating in space finds Master Chief floating outside of his Pelican. And with his armor being unlocked, we are back in the armor of our favorite Green Space Marine. No, not him. Or him. Yeah, him. But with the story set up, how does the game play? Halo Infinite has a very similar gameplay loop from other Halo games with open world elements inserted into it. Every fight is a game of chess where you have the tools to clear the board in many different ways with vehicles, outright running in, sniping or stealth to kill the Banished in your way. Many different types of weapons to use, from shotguns, automatic rifles, plasma weapons that break energy shields, melee weapons, anti-vehicle weapons like a rocket launcher, sniper, the cooler sniper, and precision weapons that carry over some traits from other weapon classes that were the workhorse weapons in the legendary playthrough of my campaign. The legendary campaign is plagued by jackal snipers, as advertised on the lid. But overall, I feel like Legendary in this game is much easier than it is in other Halos. This is mostly because of the ways you can actually fight stuff in the open world, with the most used arenas being forward operating bases around the map. These forward operating bases, which are captured after a small battle, show collectibles and other battles around the map to kill wanted targets or side grades for weapons and vehicles, or to take fortresses or save Marines. All of these side missions unlock things like weapon variants, Marines to follow you into battle, or vehicles which can either be ordered or pop up at the FOBs you capture. Get weapons, explore, and get upgrades. Equipment is back from Halo 3, but is used differently. A grapple hook, a drop wall, a threat sensor, and a thruster, with the multiplayer-only repulsor, active camo, and overshield. The use of all the abilities change how you walk into a battle, from a fortified playstyle to sniping to dodging enemy attacks. The grapple hook is also a great exploration option. You can always explore using the grapple hook, which is a great traversal option and better feeling than the Spider-Man in the Square Enix Avengers game. You can go off-roading and fly off cliffs, with vehicles plummeting into your enemies like a majestic steel tiger. The issue is the open world feels kind of boring. It feels alive with animals, water features, and pine trees, and banished bases with ancient alien structures all around, but there are really only 3 types of scenery. With the Halo ring we're being on broken and fractured, maybe each type of section on the map could have had a different section of Halo ring. Give me the deserts, like the ones in the Ark in Halo 3. Give me the swamps from 343 Guilty Spark and Halo Combat Evolved. Give me something else, because I'm scared of trees and forests because of Stephen King's books, and because I live in a desert. Halo Infinite's announcement trailer showed many types of biomes and wildlife not seen in the game. Halo has done lots of smoke and mirrors at E3 presentations before though. Also, spoilers from here on out. If you haven't completed the game, on screen will display a time code for you to go to where spoiler discussions end. Halo Infinite could have also really benefited from another enemy faction. The enemies that are in the game act like enemies we've already seen, a reskin of the Buggers and a slightly different Sentinel. The Flood was briefly talked about, and their inclusion in the story could have solved the issues of not too exciting enemies and landscapes. The Flood biomass zones from Halo 3 could have changed the open world and brought the stakes of the endgame up. Imagine having to grapple away from large hordes of next-gen Flood that could also have grapple hooks with their tendrils. The Flood would have changed the game quite a bit and been very different and exciting.
The main batteries are shut down. We're stuck out here.
The story of Halo Infinite is themed around failure, hope, and trust. This is seen through the perceived failure of Chief protecting the failed Cortana. Master Chief learns how to trust his friends, Weapon and Fernando, Such a simple story allows for a simple plot, but also gives way for a lot of character development. Halo Infinite's campaign is very reminiscent of Halo Combat Evolved's story, featuring Weapon, who's Cortana. It's not Cortana who the original Cortana talked about in Halo 4. It still has Master Chief, but he's a bit more emotionally vulnerable because of the perceived death of Cortana and then her reveal and revival as Halo 5's villain. There's also Echo 216, who is actually named Fernando Esparza, who is the biggest homie and is only a human. He has a really good story. Fernando's character and his development really showcase Master Chief as a hero, as well as his reactions to seeing dead Marines and Spartans in the story, moving them aside, while he systematically destroys every banished in his wake. Chief is still an audience surrogate, but has his own secrets and backstory explained in this game. And with him finding Weapon, who is an exact copy of Cortana, made to destroy the original Cortana, and the original Cortana was deleted, but Weapon also was supposed to be deleted when the original Cortana was deleted, but Weapon isn't deleted. Chief then goes to find the secrets of the Halo Ring and reunites with the rest of the human forces. Plot lines from Halo 5 are dropped and put in audio logs that you can find around the map, very similar to Batman Arkham City. It's much like if Combat Evolved was made today with open world elements. The game itself is blatant nostalgia bait. There's a lot of nostalgia and it's super cool and fresh enough to be considered its own game and good. Escharum is a good villain that shows the continuation of the Banish even if Atriox is dead, makes the Banish feel weakened but still strong enough to make them be a threat. During Escherum's death scene, Master Chief sees Escharum as a soldier trying to do the best with his people. But I do agree with Fernando though. I don't understand why he was given such an honor in his death when he was trying to kill a non-intimidating slab of man. Also, the final boss is an alien that isn't really explained. Most likely it's a progenitor of the Forerunners, which I say with an educated guess because I watched a bunch of Halo lore videos. It is found out that Cortana destroys the homeworld of Atriox because of his unwillingness to bend to the knee. After seeing that, Weapon realizing she's a copy of Cortana feels like she should be deleted. But after all the adventuring and a few close calls with Master Chief actually trying to delete Weapon, Chiefs trust her. Cortana is then shocked to hear that Atriox was a Chad and kinda almost killed Master Chief. Cortana then realizes that the only possibility of the Banished losing would be that Master Chief were to come back from the dead and save the world yet again. She then deletes herself because of all the errors she has made. Chief then kills that progenitor lady and then teleports away 3 days later and then gets properly introduced to Fernando, and then the main story ends. Notice how I didn't really talk about Escharum besides how he dies? Escharum was a lot like Halo 2's Tartarus, a secondary character, but Tartarus was used as a representative of the lower parts of the Covenant and their faith. Escharum doesn't have that same pizzazz and deserved to be the final boss compared to the weird lady we didn't really know much of the story of. I suppose Escherum's weakened state and also his vigor in fighting people still shows how the Banished is after Atriox's death though. Then there's an after credits scene showing that Atriox is still alive and on the ring, setting up for some story DLC. The story is a good simple soft reboot. Escharum is underutilized, for as cool as a character he is. The multiplayer of Halo Infinite is a combination of Halo 3s and Reaches. Kill times are similar to Halo Reach, sprinting is always allowed and slightly faster than walking, downside of pulling up your gun in your hands. The game plays well and is mechanically sound. The main issue with Halo Infinite's multiplayer is its progression system. The game relies on a battle pass system and has no other form of account progression. Earlier patches of the multiplayer made it extraordinarily hard to get a single level on the battle pass. Since then, challenges that give extra experience have been marginally easier to complete, and 6 matches per day complete a battle pass tier. The multiplayer also uses a limited time store, and has it so certain armors are limited to microtransactions. Playlist updates also changed how easy it was to get a desired game mode, making it more accessible. With the multiplayer and campaign summarized, what did others have to say about Halo Infinite? Halo Infinite currently has an 81 on Metacritic. It turns out Halo's own incompetence for 2 main games straight, compared to the other games, was its own death. But Halo is once again back on top, because of Call of Duty and Battlefield flopping critically, Halo came out at a perfect time. Most of the community's complaints with the game are centered around the accessibility and progression systems in the multiplayer. I will rate the campaign and multiplayer on their own since the campaign is practically its own game. The campaign is an 8 out of 5 and slightly better than Halo 3's campaign, but below Reach's and Halo 2's. The multiplayer right now is an 8 out of 10. It was a 6 out of 10 before the changes in multiplayer progression, and could possibly be a 9 or even 10 out of 10 if it continues to get better. Halo Infinite is back on top. But what do you guys think about Halo Infinite? Make sure to leave a comment down below on your opinions about it. Make sure to like the video if you liked and subscribe if you want to see more videos from it. I really do think Halo Infinite was a really great return to form for Halo.